He then called his old friend, Wilbur. Wilbur had been out of the city since graduation. He'd been Brick's roommate. They'd started life together, hungry, ambitious, inseparable, until fate dragged them in different directions. The phone rang endlessly. For a moment, Brick thought Wilbur wouldn't pick up. Then, a rough, sleepy voice came through. "Who the hell calls this late?" Brick swallowed hard. His throat felt dry. "It's me, Brick." The silence that followed was thick. A long sigh slid down the line. "Brick Alessandro. The devil himself still walks this earth," Wilbur muttered. "Where have you been hiding, brother?" "Nowhere." "Everywhere," Brick said quietly. "I need you." That last sentence carried the weight of a broken man. Wilbur caught it instantly. His tone softened. "You sound like hell." "What happened?" "Everything," Brick said. He raked his hand through his wet hair, water still dripping down his neck. "Amy left me. Martha betrayed me. My kids are hers. I didn't know. I hurt her, Wilbur. I destroyed the only woman who ever loved me." Wilbur exhaled slowly. "Brick, where are you?" "At home." "I'm coming," Wilbur said instantly. "Don't move. Don't drink. Don't do anything stupid." The line went dead. Brick sank onto the couch again, gripping his head. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. Heavy rain began to fall, lashing against the glass walls of his mansion. The sky seemed to mourn with him. For the first time in years, the invincible Brick Alessandro looked like a man who had lost the war within himself. He stared at the letter Amy had left. Every word burned deeper than the last. She was gone to Nolan. Of all people, Nolan, the man who'd humiliated him in front of his own soldiers. Nolan, the man who wanted Amy as his own. Brick clenched his fists until his knuckles whitened. He thought he could conquer countries, bend men to his will, build empires. But not once had he imagined he'd lose Amy to another man because of his own blindness. The guards outside whispered about him. Everyone could feel the shift. Their master was no longer in control. Minutes later, headlights swept across the driveway. Wilbur arrived in a black SUV, rain soaking his jacket as he ran up the stairs. The guards let him in at once. He found Brick standing before the window, unmoving, staring into the storm. "Brick," Wilbur called gently. Brick didn't turn. "You ever love a woman so much you'd burn the world for her, only to find out you were the one who struck the first match?" Wilbur approached, eyes narrowing at the soaked floor, the letter, the DNA test still open on the table. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. Brick did, every painful detail. From the first day he met Amy, to the memory loss, the lies, Martha's deceit, Nolan's betrayal, Amy's letter. Wilbur listened in silence, face hardening as the truth unfolded. When Brick finished, Wilbur stood still for a while, processing it all. Then he said, "You're still alive. That means you can fix it." Brick turned sharply. "Fix it? She's gone to Nolan. By now, she's probably sleeping in his bed." "Then take her back," Wilbur said simply. Brick laughed bitterly. "By force? You think she'll come willingly after what I've done?" Wilbur shrugged. "You're Brick Alessandro. When have you ever taken no for an answer?" Brick stared at him, then shook his head. "I'm tired of fighting." Wilbur studied him closely. "No, brother. You're not tired. You're heartbroken. There's a difference." Brick's jaw tightened. He didn't respond. Wilbur picked up Amy's letter from the table, reading it slowly. "You know what I see here," he said finally. "A woman who still cares. She didn't have to warn you to stay away. She could have vanished. But she left this letter to test you, to see if you'd come after her." Brick's eyes flickered with something faint. Hope, maybe, but it was gone in seconds. "You don't know Amy. She means her words." Wilbur smirked faintly. "Then let's find out." Before Brick could ask what he meant, Wilbur had already pulled out his phone, dialing a number. "I still have friends in the Intelligence Bureau," he said. "They'll track Nolan's movements in an hour. If Amy's with him, we'll know." Brick hesitated. "And then what?" "Then you'll decide whether you want to be a coward or a man who fights for his family." Brick didn't reply, but his silence said enough. At the presidential residence, Amy sat on the edge of the massive bed, her heart heavy. She hadn't slept. The rain outside mirrored the storm inside her chest. Nolan stood by the fireplace, watching her. "You're quiet," he said softly. She didn't look up. "What do you want me to say? That you're happy to be here?" Amy gave a small, humorless laugh. "Happy? You forced me here, Nolan. You think dragging me into this mansion and giving me a crown will make me forget the man I love?" Nolan's eyes darkened. "That man humiliated you. He chose your enemy over you. He almost let Martha destroy you. I'm offering you peace. Peace built on lies is just another prison," Amy said, voice trembling but firm. Nolan stepped closer. "You don't see it now, but one day you will. I'll make you forget him. You'll love me instead." Amy met his gaze. "You can take my body, Nolan, but not my heart." He stared at her for a long moment, then turned away, jaw tight. "We'll see." Amy's eyes burned. As soon as he left the room, she stood and looked out the window. The city stretched far below, silent and wet. Somewhere out there, she imagined Brick alone, shattered. For a fleeting second, her resolve wavered. She still loved him, despite everything. But she forced herself to breathe. "He's the reason my children suffered. I can't go back." She whispered to herself, "Don't look back, Amy. Not this time." But fate doesn't listen to vows whispered in the dark. Back at Brick's mansion, the rain slowed to a drizzle. Wilbur's phone buzzed. He checked it, then looked at Brick. "Found her. Presidential compound. North sector." Brick's heart skipped. "She's with Nolan?" "Yeah, and Nolan's doubling security around the perimeter." Brick paced. "If I go there, it's war." Wilbur folded his arms. "Then go to war." Brick stopped pacing. "And if she refuses to come with me?" Wilbur met his eyes steadily. "Then at least you'll know you fought for her." Brick exhaled slowly. "If I go, there's no turning back." Wilbur smirked. "Since when do you ever turn back?" Brick looked toward the dark horizon. The pain in his chest turned to something else, resolve. He walked to the hidden vault behind his study wall and pressed his thumb to the scanner. The metal door slid open, revealing weapons, documents, and a small black box. He pulled it out. Inside was a pendant, Amy's. She had dropped it years ago on the day he first kissed her. He had kept it ever since. He clenched it in his fist. "If I die tonight, at least she'll know I remembered." Wilbur's voice was low. "Then let's make sure you live." Meanwhile, on the island of fire, Martha screamed until her throat tore. The sun burned her skin raw. Her lips were cracked, bleeding. The guards had left her tied, her body curled unnaturally, face pressed against the scorching rock. Every hour felt like a lifetime. By the fourth day, her voice was gone. Only silent tears rolled down her face. But Martha Alessandro wasn't one to die easily. When the old man who lived at the mountain base brought his grandson to gather herbs, he saw her. The boy cried out, "Grandfather, there's someone tied up there." The old man hesitated, afraid. "That's the devil's punishment, boy. Don't go near." But the boy ran anyway. He climbed, small hands scraping on sharp rocks, until he reached Martha. When he saw her lips moving faintly, he realized she was alive. "Help!" she whispered, barely audible. The boy ran back for his grandfather. The old man cursed, terrified, but couldn't abandon her. Together they untied her slowly, dragging her down the mountain. Her body was a ruin of burns and bruises, but her mind was sharper than ever. That night, as the boy's mother cleaned her wounds, Martha whispered, "You'll all die if anyone knows you helped me." The family froze. She was weak, but her voice carried venom. The old man's wife trembled. "We just wanted to help." "You did," Martha interrupted. "Now keep your mouths shut. If Brick learns I'm alive, you'll all hang." When they nodded fearfully, she smiled weakly. "Let Brick think I'm dead. I'll heal. And when I return, he'll wish I truly was." By dawn, Brick and Wilbur were already on the road, approaching the city center. The presidential compound loomed ahead, gates of iron, guards posted at every corner. Brick parked the car far enough away and watched through binoculars. "She's in the east wing," Wilbur said. "Top floor." Brick nodded. "That's where I'll go." "You'll need a distraction," Wilbur said. Brick turned to him. "And you?" Wilbur grinned. "I'm your distraction." Before Brick could stop him, Wilbur stepped out of the car and fired 2 warning shots into the air. Sirens blared immediately. Soldiers rushed to the western gate, shouting. Brick slipped through the shadows toward the opposite side. He scaled the outer wall like a ghost, landing silently in the garden. The smell of wet earth filled the air. Every sound, the chirp of insects, the whisper of rain, seemed magnified. He moved fast, ducking behind hedges, avoiding flashlights. Inside, Amy stood by the window, sensing something. Her heart began to race. The air felt charged, familiar. She turned and froze. Brick stood at the balcony door, drenched, eyes dark and hollow. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The world outside vanished. Amy, he said quietly. She felt her throat tighten. You shouldn't be here. I had to see you. She shook her head, backing away. No, you don't get to do this. You ruined everything. I know, he said, and I'd burn myself alive to undo it. Tears filled her eyes. Don't. Just leave. Nolan will kill you. I don't care, Brick said. Let him try. Please, Brick, don't make this harder, she whispered, voice cracking. It took everything in me to walk away. He stepped closer. And I'll spend the rest of my life walking toward you. Her tears fell freely now. Why do you do this to me? Because I love you. Silence. The kind that hurts. Then the door burst open. Nolan stormed in, gun drawn. Amy, step aside. Brick turned slowly. You again. Get out, Nolan barked. You're trespassing on government property. Brick smirked faintly. Then arrest me again. Amy moved between them. No. Please. Stop this. But neither man listened. They stood face to face, rainwater dripping from Brick's hair, firelight flickering on Nolan's gun. You think you can walk in here and take her? Nolan hissed. I'm not taking her, Brick said. She's already mine. Nolan's jaw clenched. Not anymore. He fired. Amy screamed. The bullet shattered the air. And missed. Brick had moved, lightning fast, slamming Nolan against the wall. The gun clattered away. They struggled, fury colliding in every blow. The sound of fists, shouts, crashing glass filled the room. Stop it! Amy cried, grabbing Brick's arm. Stop! But Brick's rage was unrelenting. He pinned Nolan by the throat. You took my children. You took my wife. You think I won't kill you? Brick, don't! Amy shouted. Please! Her voice broke through the storm in his head. Brick froze, staring at her tear-streaked face. Slowly, he loosened his grip. Nolan collapsed, gasping for air. Guards' footsteps thundered down the hall. Amy turned to Brick, desperate. Go! Now! He hesitated. Come with me. I can't, she cried. Please. Just go. For a moment, his eyes lingered on hers. So much love, regret, pain. Then he turned and leaped through the shattered balcony, vanishing into the rain below. Amy fell to her knees, sobbing. Nolan coughed, still catching his breath. He glared at her. You called him here. I didn't, she whispered. But he didn't believe her. Outside, sirens wailed. Searchlights swept across the compound. Brick disappeared into the darkness, soaked, bleeding, but alive. Somewhere in that night, he made a silent vow. If fate wants a war, it will get one. Rain lashed against the darkened city as Brick vanished into the night. He moved like a wounded wolf, each step heavy, each breath thick with fury and heartbreak. Behind him, alarms blared from the presidential compound. Sirens cut through the downpour, soldiers shouting orders as they fanned into the streets. But Brick knew these streets better than any of them. Every corner, every hidden alley, every rooftop shadow, they were all his domain. He slipped into a narrow lane, pulled off his drenched jacket, and pressed against the cold wall. Blood trickled down his arm from a shallow cut, but he didn't care. He could still hear Amy's voice in his head. Go! Now! Her scream had carved itself into his soul. He clenched his fists, shaking. Nolan, he whispered to the rain, you think you can cage my world and call it peace? You've started a war you can't win. A car screeched around the corner. Wilbur. He leaned out the window. Get in! Brick sprinted and dove inside. Wilbur floored the accelerator, tires hissing on wet asphalt as they vanished into the storm. Damn, Brick, what happened? Wilbur shouted over the roar of rain. Nolan shot at me, Brick said flatly. Missed. I almost killed him. Wilbur cursed under his breath. And Amy! She saved him, Brick said bitterly. Again. Wilbur glanced sideways. Then she still cares. If she didn't, she'd have let you finish it. Brick didn't answer. He stared out the window, jaw clenched. Drive to the base, he said finally. We've got work to do. At the presidential mansion, chaos had erupted. Guards stormed every hallway. Nolan sat on the edge of the bed, his shirt ripped, his throat bruised. A doctor applied ice to his neck, but his fury burned hotter than pain. Find him, he barked hoarsely. I want every checkpoint, every roadblock searching. If you see him, shoot on sight. Amy sat by the window, silent. Her hands trembled. She'd never seen Nolan like this. Not just angry, but humiliated. His pride had taken a mortal wound. Nolan turned on her suddenly. You knew he'd come, didn't you? She looked at him, eyes red from crying. No. Don't lie to me, Amy. I didn't know Nolan. I swear, she said softly. He just appeared. Nolan paced, breathing hard. He broke into the presidential residence. That's treason. So is shooting an unarmed man, she whispered. He stopped cold, staring at her. You're defending him. Again. Amy didn't reply. She didn't have to. Nolan's expression hardened. You think you love him. You think he loves you. But he's poison, Amy. You'll see it when it's too late. He turned away, fists trembling. From today, you don't step outside this compound. Not until I say so. Amy looked at him, shocked. You're imprisoning me? I'm protecting you, he said sharply. From the only man who ever truly loved me, she whispered, voice breaking. Nolan's silence was answer enough. She stood slowly. You're worse than him. He flinched, as though her words were knives. But when he looked back, she had already walked away, into her room, closing the door quietly behind her. Across the sea, the sun baked the island of torment. Martha lay half-conscious on a straw mat in the hut where the old family hid her. Her skin had peeled and darkened, her lips dry and cracked. Yet her eyes burned with life, cruel, defiant life. The old man entered, carrying a bowl of water. Drink, he said softly. She took it, her hands trembling, and gulped it down greedily. When she finished, she looked up at him with hollow eyes. How many days has it been? 7. Good, she whispered, smiling faintly. That means he thinks I'm dead. The old man frowned. You should rest. Your body. My body will heal, she said. My revenge won't wait. He hesitated. Revenge. Her lips curved. You saved a serpent, old man. Pray I never turn on you. He froze at the venom in her tone. You should be grateful we saved your life. Oh, I am, she said softly. So grateful that I'll start with you when it's time to shed the skin. The old man's face drained of color. He backed away, murmuring a prayer. Martha leaned back, smiling in the dark. Her mind was already racing. Nolan, Brick, Amy. The triangle of hatred and love that had destroyed her would soon burn them all. She whispered to herself, You thought you could erase me, Brick? You tied me to the sun, but it didn't burn me. It forged me. Meanwhile, back in the underground base, Brick paced before a table covered in blueprints and maps. Wilbur leaned on the edge, arms folded. So, Wilbur said, what's the plan? Brick's voice was low. Nolan wants to start a war. I'll end it. You're not thinking straight, Wilbur said carefully. He's the president, Brick. One move, and the entire military comes down on you. I don't need to fight an army, Brick replied coldly. Just a man. Wilbur exhaled. And Amy! Brick stopped pacing. For the first time that night, his face softened. Amy doesn't deserve this. I hurt her enough already. But if Nolan's keeping her prisoner, I'll burn his walls to ashes. Wilbur nodded slowly. Then we do it smart. No open attack. No bloodbath. We find a way to pull her out quietly. Brick looked at him. You think she'll come? Wilbur gave a faint, crooked smile. She may hate you. But hate that deep doesn't come without love. That night, Amy stood by her window again. Rain still clung to the glass, silver threads in the moonlight. She had tried to sleep, but her heart refused. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Brick's face, wet, wounded, desperate. Her fingers tightened on the curtains. Why did you come back? she whispered to the night. Why couldn't you let me go? Suddenly, a faint light flickered outside, far below in the courtyard. A single flash, then another. Morse code. Her heart skipped. Years ago, when Brick trained her during their time in North Hill's intelligence unit, he had taught her a code, one only they knew. 2 short flashes, 1 long. Then pause. Her eyes widened. I'm coming. She stepped back, hand to her mouth. Brick. By dawn, the city was under curfew. Nolan's orders were absolute. Every exit was guarded. Every checkpoint scanned vehicles for Brick's face. He had become the nation's most wanted man overnight. But Brick didn't hide. He waited. At 3 a.m., he and Wilbur sat inside an abandoned radio tower outside the Capitol. From there, they could see the distant lights of the presidential residence like a sleeping beast. Wilbur set down a small transmitter. Our friend in communications says Nolan's deploying a convoy to transfer sensitive documents tonight. The route passes near the east wall of the compound. That's your window. Brick nodded. And Amy? She's under house watch. Guard rotation changes every 2 hours. Between 3:15 and 3:20, there's a blind spot. Brick rose, slipping on a dark jacket. Then that's when I go in. Wilbur grabbed his arm. If you get caught, you won't walk out again. Brick looked at him, calm and steady. I've already died once. He pulled the pendant from his pocket and kissed it. For her, he murmured, and vanished into the night. Inside the presidential mansion, Amy sat awake. The Morse signal hadn't returned, but she felt him coming. Her instincts were rarely wrong. She waited, heart pounding. At 3:17, a soft tap on the window. Her breath caught. She turned slowly, and there he was again. Brick. This time his face was calmer, colder. He gestured for silence. She hesitated, torn between fear and longing. Then she opened the window. Rain drifted in, soft and cool. Are you insane? She whispered. Yes, he said. For you. Brick, please. Nolan will. He silenced her with a look. I didn't come to fight. I came to take you away. She shook her head. I can't leave. He'll kill you. Brick's voice dropped to a whisper. Then let him try. He reached out and took her hand gently. For a second, her walls crumbled. His touch still felt like home. I can't, she said again, tears welling. My children. They're safe, he interrupted. Wilbur has them. In the safe house. Her eyes widened. You found them? He nodded. They remember now. Amy's knees weakened. They remember? Yes. All of it. She began to sob silently. Brick! He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight as rain whispered through the window. Come home, he said softly. Please. She hesitated for only a second, then nodded. He smiled faintly. Good. Stay close. But as they turned toward the door, a gun clicked behind them. Touch her again, and you'll leave here in a coffin, Nolan said. He stood there, barefoot, wearing only his robe, but his aim was steady. Behind him, 2 guards entered, rifles raised. Amy gasped. Nolan, please. Step away from him, Nolan barked. Now. Brick didn't move. You'll have to shoot through her. I will, Nolan said coldly. If it means ending this madness. Amy stepped between them, trembling. Stop. Please. Don't do this. Nolan's eyes flicked to her, pain flickering beneath his anger. Amy, you don't understand. He'll destroy everything. Brick's voice was low. You already did. And before Nolan could react, Brick moved, knocking the gun aside, sweeping Amy behind him. A shot rang out. Another. Chaos exploded. Guards rushed in, but Brick was faster, slamming one into the wall, disarming the other. He grabbed Amy's hand. Now! They bolted through the corridor as alarms wailed again, echoing through the marble halls. Nolan shouted after them, furious. Seal the gates. Don't let them leave. But it was too late. Brick and Amy burst through the service door into the rain, racing toward the outer wall. Gunfire cracked behind them. Bullets tore through the air, shattering tiles, ripping through hedges. Brick shielded Amy with his body, leaping over the wall and landing hard on the other side. A black SUV screeched up, Wilbur behind the wheel. Get in! They dived inside, doors slamming as Wilbur sped off into the storm. Amy clung to Brick, shaking. "What have you done?" Brick looked at her, breathless but calm. "I brought you home." By morning, the news had spread. President's fiancé abducted by fugitive Brick Alessandro. Every screen in North Hill broadcast the same headline. The nation was split, half calling Brick a traitor, half calling him a hero. Inside the safe house, Amy sat quietly beside her children, tears streaming as she held them close. Their little faces were filled with recognition now, Mama. They had cried when they first saw her. That sound alone shattered the walls she'd built around her heart. Brick watched from a distance, guilt and relief warring inside him. Wilbur joined him. "You did it. You got her and the kids. What now?" Brick's eyes darkened. "Now I finish it. Nolan won't stop." Wilbur nodded slowly. "Then we prepare." Far across the burning sea, Martha stood at the island's edge, her skin healed, her eyes cold as stone. She stared toward the distant mainland, toward the city she'd lost. A small motorboat waited behind her, manned by a smuggler she'd bribed with stolen gold. "Where to, madam?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "North Hill." The man hesitated. "That's where Brick Alessandro rules." "Not for long," she said, stepping into the boat. As the engine roared to life, the horizon bled gold beneath the rising sun. 3 souls, 1 war, and love caught in the fire. The morning broke with a quiet heaviness over East Hill. Clouds hung low, like gray wool torn across the horizon. Amy stirred in her sleep, clutching one of the twins to her chest. The other had rolled over, his small hand dangling off the bed, fingers twitching as if reaching for something unseen. Outside, the presidential residence was still. Only the rhythmic clack of guards' boots disturbed the silence. Amy woke up slowly, eyes half open. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then she saw the crest on the far wall, Nolan's presidential seal, and reality slid back into place like a sharp blade. She sighed. Another morning in a gilded cage. She eased herself out of bed, tucked the blanket around the children, and stepped onto the balcony. The cool air kissed her skin. From here, she could see the courtyard below, the fountains, the manicured gardens, and the men patrolling like clockwork toys. Nolan's world was clean, perfect, controlled. It suffocated her. A knock came at the door. "Madam, His Excellency requests your presence in the dining room," a guard said from outside. Amy's heart sank. She'd known this day would come, the day Nolan would stop pretending to be patient. She dressed quickly, simple white dress, hair tied back. She didn't bother with makeup. What was the use? Nolan didn't love her face. He loved the idea of owning her. When she arrived at the dining room, Nolan was already seated, sipping coffee. The table was long, draped in white linen, polished cutlery gleaming like tiny blades. He looked up and smiled faintly. "You're awake. Sit." She obeyed quietly. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, tone soft but loaded. Amy didn't answer right away. As much as anyone can when trapped in a palace. Nolan's jaw tensed. "You speak as if this place is a prison." "It is," she said, eyes steady on him. "A beautiful one." He set the cup down gently. "Amy, I'm giving you a life most women would kill for. Comfort, safety, power. You'll be the first lady in a few days." "I never asked for power," she murmured. "I asked for peace." "Peace!" He laughed quietly, bitterly. "You'll have peace when you stop chasing ghosts. Broderick is gone." Her eyes flicked up sharply. "You don't know that." "I do," Nolan said. "My men watched him drive to El Island last night. He didn't return." Amy's heart stumbled. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward. "You think I don't know what he did to Martha? He tied her on a mountain to burn alive. That's who you love, a beast. You should thank me for removing him from your life." Her breath caught. She stared at him, trying to read his eyes. "Did you?" "I gave orders," Nolan said simply. "If he sets foot back in North Hill, he'll be executed." Amy froze. The words hit harder than any bullet. "You had no right," she whispered. "You had no right to decide his fate." "I have every right," Nolan replied, voice cold now. "I'm the law here. You and your children are under my protection." And soon, he rose, walked around the table, and stopped beside her chair. "You'll be my wife." Amy turned her face away. "You can't force love." "No," he said softly, but I can earn it. He left the room without another word. Amy sat there long after he was gone, staring at the untouched food. Her mind replayed his words. El Island. He didn't return. Brick. If Nolan's men were right, Brick might have gone back to check on Martha. The image of that sun-scorched mountain flashed in her mind. The thought of him standing there, facing the ruin of what Martha had done, made her chest ache. She pushed away the chair and ran back to her room. At that very hour, far from East Hill, El Island simmered beneath a merciless sun. The wind there was dry, the ground cracked like old glass. On the mountain's peak, Martha's lips were split and bleeding. Her throat felt like sand. The ropes had cut deep into her wrists and ankles. The sky above her was a white furnace. She had stopped crying hours ago. Tears only made the pain worse. When she first saw Brick arrive the day before, she had begged, screamed, promised anything. He hadn't looked at her twice. When he left, she thought she'd die within hours. But she hadn't. Not yet. The old man who lived nearby came once that morning, carrying a bowl of water. He wasn't supposed to, but pity had driven him. He looked over his shoulder nervously as he pressed the bowl to her lips. Drink fast. If his men find me helping you, I'm dead, he whispered. Martha drank greedily, water spilling down her chin. Please, she rasped, untie me. I'll pay you. He shook his head. No one disobeys Brick Alessandro. Not even the sea itself. He left her there. The sun climbed higher. Hours stretched into torment. By evening, her skin burned raw, her lips cracked deeper, her mind slipping between delirium and consciousness. And then, through the shimmer of heat, she saw movement below. A vehicle, black, with the presidential crest. Her heart began to pound. The car stopped at the foot of the mountain. Soldiers got out first, then Nolan himself. Nolan, she croaked weakly as he climbed toward her. Nolan! He stopped before her, expression unreadable. Sweat glistened on his face. So it's true, he said softly. He did this to you. Martha could barely speak. Please untie me. I'll tell you everything. He motioned for his men to cut the ropes. She fell to the ground like a sack, gasping. Her body was one great bruise. Nolan crouched beside her. You said you had information for me. I can give you everything, she whispered hoarsely. Brick's secrets, his enemies, his past, even his weakness, Amy. He watched her closely. Why would you betray him now? Her cracked lips curved faintly. Because he betrayed me first. He helped her to her feet, steadying her with one arm. You'll come with me. But know this, Martha. If you lie to me, you'll beg to be tied back here. She nodded rapidly. I won't. I swear it. As they descended, she glanced back at the mountain. Her prison for a day and a half. A vow burned in her chest. Amy will pay. Brick will pay more. Night fell over North Hill. A storm gathered above the sea, lightning veins flashing across the dark. Brick stood on the balcony of his villa, drenched in rain. His eyes were distant, hollow. The letter from Amy lay on the table behind him, soaked and torn. He hadn't slept in 2 days. The weight of guilt was crushing him. Amy was gone. With Nolan. With his children. He lit a cigarette, but the wind blew it out immediately. He didn't bother lighting another. His reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Wilbur's voice came from inside. You're losing it, brother. Come inside before you drown yourself in rain. Brick turned slowly. Wilbur had arrived that morning, the only person who still dared visit him. You saw the DNA test? Brick asked quietly. I did. Then you know I've wronged her beyond forgiveness. Wilbur sighed, walking closer. What's done is done. You can't fix the past. But you can fight for the present. Brick laughed bitterly. Fight who? Nolan controls the army. Amy's under his roof. And Martha, he paused, is roasting in the sun, if she's not dead already. Then it's time to change the game, Wilbur said. Nolan plays politics. You play power. Brick looked up slowly. Power. You build half this country's industry. You control the trade routes, the mines, the oil ports. You could cripple his regime in a week if you wanted to. He has soldiers, but you have loyalty. That's your weapon. Brick said nothing. Rain ran down his face like tears. Find Amy, Wilbur added. Not to take her back. but to tell her the truth, then walk away clean. Brick's jaw flexed. He looked at the dark horizon, where lightning split the clouds again. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow I start. In East Hill, Amy sat by the window, unable to sleep. The rain pattered against the glass like fingers tapping for attention. The twins were asleep again, curled close together. Their faces looked so peaceful it hurt to look at them. She rose quietly, walked to the table, and pulled out her phone. She hesitated. Nolan had banned her from calling anyone. But there was one number he hadn't erased from her contacts, Brick's. Her thumb hovered over it. She didn't expect him to answer. She just wanted to hear the tone ring. She pressed call. Once. Twice. 3 times. The network was weak. The call didn't connect. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I just need to know you're alive." She didn't see the shadow move outside her window. A soldier, one of Nolan's personal guards, had been standing there all along, watching. He spoke into his earpiece softly. "Sir," she's trying to reach him again. Nolan's voice crackled back through the speaker. "Intercept the signal. Trace it. And if she tries again, lock her phone permanently." "Yes, sir." The soldier melted back into the rain. Far away, Brick's phone buzzed. The signal was faint. He glanced at the screen. Amy Owen. His heart slammed. He tried to answer, but it disconnected instantly. He stared at the screen, then at Wilbur. "She tried to reach me." Wilbur smiled slightly. "Then she hasn't given up entirely." Brick's fingers tightened around the phone. "She's still in there. Nolan's palace. If he's watching her, she's not safe." "What are you thinking?" Wilbur asked. Brick's eyes hardened. "Rescue." Wilbur froze. "You'll start a war." "Then let there be war," Brick said quietly. Thunder rolled over the sea. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed and cold. Martha sat in Nolan's guest chamber, freshly bathed, her wounds bandaged. She wore a pale robe and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her face was swollen, but her eyes were alive, sharper, darker. The door opened. Nolan stepped in, a folder in hand. "You look better," he said. "Better than the mountain," she replied dryly. He set the folder on the table. "I had my men dig into your claims. You said you know Brick's weakness." Martha turned slowly. "His weakness isn't just Amy." "No, it's guilt," she said. "If you want to destroy him, make him believe Amy betrayed him." Nolan studied her. "And you can help me do that?" "I can make Amy doubt him too," Martha said, voice smooth. "When lovers stop trusting each other, they destroy themselves." He smirked faintly. "You want revenge. I want control. Seems we need each other." "Exactly." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then listen carefully, Martha. You'll go back to him." Her eyes widened. "What?" "As his ally," Nolan continued. "Tell him you escaped. Tell him I tortured you. Feed him lies that make him hate me more. Then, when he comes for Amy, I'll be ready." Martha's lips parted into a slow, dangerous smile. "A trap." "Precisely." She nodded. "And when it's over?" Nolan's eyes glinted. "You'll have your revenge. I'll have my throne secure. And Amy will belong to no one." They shook hands, a silent pact sealed in hate. That night, under the thin light of a crescent moon, Martha boarded a small speedboat bound for North Hill. The waves were restless, the wind sharp. Behind her, the presidential island faded into shadow. Ahead, a new storm waited, one not of weather, but of vengeance. And as the boat sliced through the dark water, her mind whispered like poison, "Let them all burn.